Hello guys, I'm Charlie Austen for New York Movie Buff, and I'm here to do my review on the first episode of the final season of Game of Thrones that just aired a few hours ago. But first, let's roll the intro. Before jumping into this review of Game of Thrones, please help me out. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, the notification bell, follow me on my social networks. You can find my Instagram address right here on top. And please help me to keep producing this content that all of us we love so much when it comes to TV shows, movies, documentaries, all of that is part of our daily life. Okay, so it's pretty much late, it's past midnight, and oh my goodness, we just had the first episode of the final season of Game of Thrones. And my overall opinion or my overall feeling about this episode is that I really loved it. Like, it was amazing. I was watching it with friends, and something that really caught my attention, like talking about the storytelling aspect of it, was the interactions between the characters that they have grown on us, like through past seasons, and now we are seeing all of them coming together all at once, or at least all in the same episode. So we had so many interactions, so many characters that hadn't seen one another for a few years, so we could see the lapse of time, not only because of the show that is like one season per year, but also it was a long time for those characters. Maybe like more time elapsed for the characters from their perspective, for their point of view, than for the viewers themselves. So it was amazing. So a really top-notch point for me in this episode was like all these interactions. They didn't come across as something forced, as something just as a matter of a thing that had to happen because now we don't have like as many houses as we had at the beginning of the show a few years back. But like we could feel the tension, like the tension filling up the air. Like we could feel just by the way that they look to one another, by their tone of voice, what really represented for them to be meeting those specific people again in their lives, and even more in this new context where all of the living are fighting, or are trying to find a way to fight together or to band together against the dead. So it was really impressive for me. So I really enjoyed. I know that like one golden rule of filmmaking is that if you can show something, like instead of saying something, if you can show it, it's going to be much more powerful when it goes onto the big screen. Or if you can show it like through the visuals, it's going to be much more powerful. It's gonna have that feeling of rapture greater upon your audience. But something that Game of Thrones always stood out for was its ability to create amazing dialogues, and here it could really be seen throughout this episode. So although everything was very expositive, like through dialogues, through the conversation, it was not just like catch dialogue just because they had to happen. Were really well construed, well written, well thought of kind of dialogues that really left the audience hanging on there. What would be the next word uttered by that specific character? So one of the scenes that really showed that in this first episode, for example, is the exchange that Daenerys had with Assembly Torley, for example. So she's just coming there to congratulate him, to give him a reward because he helped Jorah to be cured, like to find a cure or to be healed from his sickness. And then the whole conversation goes down another path, and then in a very natural way, it didn't feel forced, at least to me. So he discovers that Daenerys like punished like his brother and his father to death, and then it took like there is an upheaval of emotions over there, and then like we can see when we look at Daenerys' face that she remembers, that like she recalled when Tyrion told her, like when he advised her to not be so proactive or such fast-paced in making decisions and just condemning them to death right away. Maybe they should have been put into jail, and they could cool down and they could think, and maybe they would bend the knee. But she didn't take the advice. She went like her own way, and now like she's reaping the consequences, because she, like we can see in this scene, that she was truly there to reward Sam, and she was really, like in her tone of voice, we could feel that she really had a high opinion of Sam, because by the way, he saved like one of the most important people, one of the most important persons in her life, Jorah. And now we can see in her face, she feels really bad, that what should have been a very cathartic kind of moment, a very beautiful moment, it became something else, because she didn't take to heart advice from her counselor, in the case Tyrion. So it was amazing, because it was a kind of exchange that I was not expecting it, and I was like even less expecting to see it like right now in the first episode. So it was kind of amazing. It was also amazing the way like the scene that they chose to end, to cut this episode out, or to leave us hanging in there with like kind of an amazing cliffhanger that is Bran. So the last scene of the episode, and it's a spoiler if you don't want to be spoiled, if you haven't watched the first episode yet, so just go check another video here in the channel and then come back, because I'm gonna give you a spoiler right now. So are you ready? Okay, so here I go. If you're still here, it's on your own account, because I'm about to drop some major spoilers here. So the last scene of the first episode is Brandon Stark, is Bran like on his wheelchair, and then Jaime arrives at Winterfell, and James just basically kind of bumps into Sam, and Sam was waiting there. He wanted Jaime to see him right when Jaime would arrive at Winterfell. Like he really planned that. He wanted that the first person that Jaime would see at Winterfell would be him. And then we are brought back, like we are called to mind how the first episode of the first season ended with which characters? Brandon and Jaime Lannister. But in the first season, in very different roles, in very different positions. So we see Jaime just throwing Brandon out of the window down the tower, and here now we see a guy that, although he's crippled, he's in a much powerful position. So it's a callback to the first season, to the first episode of the first season. So we end the first episode of the last season with the same characters that ended the first episode of the first season. So it's amazing. So there are a lot of callbacks to past seasons, even more to the first season, because the opening scene here is not a cold opening, but the first scene here reminds us of the time that Robert Baratheon was walking down into Winterfell with his royal family, and now it's another kind of royal family, because they are already a kind of family. They are all in love all over the place, with Jon and Daenerys arriving at Winterfell. So all of these similarities, like similar events happening in a similar fashion, in a similar way as we saw them already. So we feel like, I saw this already, I saw this happening already, because it really happened already with different characters in a different context in the first episode of the first season. So it really drives to my mind the idea, could we possibly witness the episode before the last one in this season repeating something that we saw in the 9th episode of the first season? Baylor, there was basically Ned Stark being beheaded. Could something like that happen again? So the whole story come full circle, and I'm kind of questioning that, because we see here there are many people questioning Daenerys' motives, or if she would do the same sacrifices as Jon has done. He just gave up the crown because of his people, because of the Northerners. So at one point, even Sam brings that up onto the table. He says, so if Daenerys would be faced with the same decision, would she take it? Would she open, would she give up her rights to be the rightful ruler, of the Seven Kingdoms? And that question keeps lingering there. And maybe, I don't know, at least for me as a viewer, as a fan, I thought, I don't know, I don't think so. So we have Sam questioning that, although he has his own motives. But here it's confirmed what Tyrion said. That advice that Tyrion gave Daenerys back on the 4th episode of the 7th season, the Spoils of War, was really the good one, was really the right direction, that she should have taken it. And she didn't, and now she really reaping the bad consequences. Karma coming full circle. So we have Sam, we have Sansa. That, by the way, I loved Sansa. She has grown so much as a character. I'm just so much in love with her, because it's amazing. It really felt, at least for me, I really got that feeling that in this whole episode, the only person that knew what she was doing exactly, or where people are going, or where people are headed, was Sansa. So I loved when she looked at Tyrion in the eye and she said, at one time, I thought that you were the smartest person in the whole world. So what she's saying, so she's so full of confidence, but I don't think that it's just self-reliance, over self-reliance. She was not just being overly self-reliant. I don't think so. I think that she really learned how to read people through, how to understand the motives, from what place they're coming from. And I think that she can see something in Daenerys that maybe Jon can't see it yet, or he's way too blind to see it. Because I think that the question that she posed to him was really a good one. So did you give up the crown because you were completely infatuated with her, or completely in love, heads over heels for her, or because it was completely or entirely for the sake of your people? I think that this is is such a valid question, because I have never thought of it in that way. At what point Jon Snow really fell in love with Daenerys, and was it before? Was it after? What I mean by that is that that moment that he symbolically bends the knee when he's inside of his of her ship, and he has come back from beyond the wall. He survived because of Uncle Benjen and all of that. At that moment when he bends the knee, it's so weird saying that he bent the knee, because actually in reality he didn't do it. But at that moment that he pledged his full allegiance to Daenerys Targaryen, was that because was entirely a genuine kind of action, in the sense that was not his feelings, kind of influencing him to take that action, to take that call to action in that direction? Or was it because of the emotions playing a major role than just the major reason that should be, or that maybe should entirely be, saving the Northerners and saving the Seven Kingdoms? I have never thought from this point of view, from this perspective, that Sansa brought out in this episode, in this questioning, and I thought that it was amazing. So Sansa had some of the best lines in the first episode. The interactions were amazing. They really understood how these characters, they clash, and how and how they have their own way of interacting and of communicating with one another. Sometimes we're showing that two characters are really glad to see one another again. Like, they don't need to be always smiles all over the face, like the hounds, like with the hounds and area. So it was more like, okay, like, you stay in your place, I'll stay in mine. But like, through their conversation and their very specific way of talking, you know, like there is slang way of talking, you can understand that he's really glad that she has survived. Like, he compliments her through cursing. So there was no hug, there was no smile. But like, on the other hand, when she was talking to Gendry, so we see that very yellowish kind of smile that Arya has put on her face in very specific occasions in this show, like in very specific moments. So we see that if she's putting that kind of smile, you know, with that kind of a shape on her face, it's because she's really glad, she's really happy to be reunited some way, somehow, even in a very different kind of set of circumstances with Gendry, with Gendrick. So it's amazing. I'm so happy that there was basically no action at all, like major action in this first episode. But when it comes to the advancement of the story for the final 5 episodes that we are about to see, to follow through next Sunday, it was amazing. In just one episode, the characters, they just grew so much. We established so many new relations. Really surprised me with some interactions. Like I said before, I didn't expect to, I never, you know, sat on my chair and kept thinking, oh, okay, so like Sam has to get the knowing that his father and his brother were killed by Daenerys herself. So I never thought that it would come this way into his knowing, like, and it was amazing. It was, yeah, it was nothing better than listening to, than getting the news from the murderer herself. So I thought that amazing, remarkable, very good plotting for this story. Something that also caught my eye, that I was caught by surprise, was that like Brandon choosing Sam and saying that Sam should be the one to deliver the news to Jon Snow, that he is the true heir of the Iron Throne. And right afterwards, that Sam, you know, has clashed with Daenerys, or has been faced with the news about his family, what really happened to his family. So I thought this very good timing, because he has having his own issues. He is dealing with his own personal news. And now he has to cast them aside for a while and go and tell Jon something that is about the lives of all of us, not only the Northerners, but all of the people dwelling in this continent. So I thought that was really thoughtful of the writers to structure this story in this way. And then, because Sam is still influenced by the emotions that flourished with the exchange with Daenerys, it played a part in the way, in the shape that the conversation took when he gave Jon Snow the reveal of his true parentage and where he leaves Jon in this world as a new character, as being someone that he hasn't known all his life, like what's his true identity, how is he going to relate to all of that. So it was amazing. I'm just so happy with this episode. I'm not even going down the path of commenting the aesthetics of the show, because it's beyond of a doubt. Everybody agrees on that Game of Thrones, when it comes to the visuals, they do an amazing work. They're so well accomplished, so professional. So 15 million, I think, per episode. I think that this first episode was the shortest of all the 6 that are scheduled for the upcoming weeks. But I think that from the third one, we might have episodes longer than 60 minutes. So So these were my thoughts in the first episode of Game of Thrones, the first episode of the final season of Game of Thrones. I don't know, they really drew many callbacks to past seasons, mostly to the first season and even more to the first episode of the first season. I hope that they keep going in the same direction, they keep on this path, and we might see referenced even more things from past seasons, so we can feel that this really is a chapter, this final season is a chapter that brings a closure, not only to this moment in the story, but for all that this TV show represents for our culture, for the media, for entertainment, but also it's a way of paying homage to this amazing fantasy, to everything that has come about because of George R.R. Martin and his books, and I think that if they keep doing that in the following episodes, so I think that the climax is gonna be so much more enticing, it's gonna be so much more rewarding for us as viewers, and also for the characters themselves. There is just one final remark that I want to make. So we know that like a good part of their budget for each one of the episodes is was spent with the visuals and the dragons and the locations and all of that. So I was really amazed when it came out of one of the characters' mouths about the Golden Company. Everybody was waiting for the elephants, because this is a trademark of the Golden Company. This is a very specific trait of the Golden Company in the books, and they really explain why in the most interesting way, why the elephants won't be part of the Golden Company in the TV show. So it's a way of rectifying, of doing a retcon of why we won't be seeing them, but we know that the real reason is just that because they didn't have money enough. Like, they had plenty of money, of course, but all the money was spent in the battle for Winterfell. That is going to be the third episode, probably in the final episode of the TV series, and also with all the aesthetics when it comes to the dragons and the battles and all of that. So something needed to be cut out, and the most obvious choice was cutting out this specific aspect of the Golden Company. They are the elephants. But we see that even through Cersei's mouth, I think that once or twice in this episode, I really felt that we're like the producers, the executive producers, saying, "Oh, we really wanted the elephants. I'm really sad." So it didn't feel so much like that it was the character's motivation. It was more like them being the puppeteers and using the character, in the case Cersei, their medium to justify why we as viewers shouldn't be expecting the Golden Company in its full splendor, I'd say. So this was my review of the first episode of the final season of Game of Thrones. So if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, okay, hit the like button, keep tracking the notification bell, so reach for the notification bell. And I'm Charlie Austen from New York Move Buff, covering the final season of Game of Thrones. Thanks for watching, bye, have a good day.